At Skillcapped, we spend a ton of time criticizing the mistakes that Gold and Platinum Elo players make to make sure you don't commit the same errors that hold them back from climbing. But something we don't mention enough is that we actually spot a lot of really good players that we're confident will eventually climb if they keep playing the way that they do. And it isn't because they're better than all the other Gold players around them. They're definitely still Gold players, but it's in the type of plays that they go for. We can instantly tell when someone is on the fast track to improving, or when other players are likely to be stuck in their Elo forever. So, stick around. We're going to be looking at a player from every single role. See if you got the right mindset and guidelines for climbing, or if you'll forever be stuck in Gold Elo. To show you an example of what we mean by a Gold player likely to climb, let's take a look at our first replay featuring a Yone playing into Azir. To kick the lane off, Yone's support Twitch is doing the classic cheese of stealthing into mid at level 1. He even does so a second time to be really obnoxious. This is great for Yone to have a lot of early pressure. Let's see how he uses it. He pushes the second wave, gets his Q3 ready, and jumps toward the Raptor camp after crashing the wave. He even manages to steal the big Raptor right under Lee's nose. So far, this is exactly what we're looking for. He's actively trying to get a lead with the pressure that was handed to him. Let's see what he does next. He sees Azir rotate and kites back, but then he immediately turns back around and even ignites the Lee. It may seem small, but this kite back is super smart. Right now, Azir's wave is overpowering Yone's. The more Yone wastes his time, the more minions and perhaps EXP Azir will miss by having to respond to this invade. So, when you're in a situation like this, walking back and forth and keeping your opponent guessing about your intentions is very smart. Now, was this super sloppy? Yes. Would a challenger player have optimized this play a lot more? Absolutely. There's a lot of micro mistakes Yone made here that didn't let him completely run away with the game, but the idea of it is what we're looking for. You're not going to perfectly execute every play. You're Gold, we don't expect you to. But the intentions behind Yone's actions there were very good, and we know it wasn't just a lucky break because of what comes next. With an HP lead, Yone uses the crashed minions to force the wave to bounce back to his side of the lane. Look at how he follows that up. He sees a random fight going on in the river and begins rotating. This is good for the same reason we talked about earlier. If Azir follows, he'll miss more farm and EXP than Yone will. It was only a brief roam, but the concept behind it was great. He's even on top of Azir the second he's back in lane to pressure him while he has this CS to get. And because of how Yone is managing the wave, it's left Azir exposed to yet another gank by his Twitch. Obviously the Twitch is having a huge influence over this lane, but Yone's actions so far are definitely in line with how we expect good players to play. Now he keeps the wave frozen for a while, but we're about to clearly see why he's still in Gold Elo. He realizes that he wants to set up a base for himself, so he breaks his own freeze to start pushing. Unfortunately, he wasn't really paying attention to his own gold amount, so he did that a little early and started recalling without enough gold for his Berserker Greaves. He quickly realizes his mistake and shamefully cancels his base. That was just a small section of gameplay, but it was more than enough for us to rate this Yone quite highly. He's definitely rough around the edges with his mechanics, and his base was a little silly. Of course, he's still Gold. However, a quality we constantly urge you to have is to always try and push every little advantage you get over your opponent. Yone was constantly doing anything he could to get the tiniest of edges over Azir and Lee. This is how you'll improve rapidly. Doing everything you can to make your opponent's lives miserable and to give you the highest chance of winning is how challenger players all play. And this Yone definitely has the mindset of a good player. And by the way, teaching you how to escape the rank you're stuck in is exactly what we specialize in at Skillcapped.com. Not only do we have over 280 high-quality courses taught by challenger experts covering every role and skill you need to learn in order to rank up, but we also release 10 new Smurf commentaries every week on our site, where a challenger player teaches you how to climb out of the exact rank you're stuck in. And those same challenger experts will answer any and all questions that you have. If you're looking for something more personal instead, well, then we got you covered with coaching from our trained challenger experts. If all of this wasn't enough, we're also backed by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using Skillcapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank you've always wanted. Alright, now let's switch things up and show you an example of a play we really disliked. To set things up, we've got a Renata in bot lane, who is winning bot lane along with her Sivir thanks to a gank. A little later on, the lane is progressing normally when Renata does something fishy. She begins recalling randomly. To make it clear, there's no base timing here. They haven't crashed the wave, and she'd be leaving Sivir alone at half HP. You see, this is to make a Rift Herald rotation. This Renata is aware that it spawns at 8 minutes, and has made it her life's mission to be there no matter what. Now here's what ended up happening. When she's up here in the river, she gets very fortunate and barely turns around this top lane fight with her W. Not only that, but Mordekaiser went in 1v3. Renata being here definitely helped to put him down as well. So all in all, this was a very successful roam by our support player. This might be the best example we could possibly ever find of a player who copies something without even trying to understand the reasoning behind it. Renata likely watches high elo or competitive play and sees this Rift Herald rotation all the time, and because of that believes that it's the correct play to do, without trying to understand why it even happens in the first place. The first thing to point out is that this was the scoreboard when she decided to roam to Herald. Her entire top side was at a slight disadvantage. You don't force Herald when your top side isn't doing well. In fact, the only ones in the team with the lead were her and Sivir, so why not play around the one shining light of the team? Not only that, but we saw her leave Sivir at a terrible time. She forced her ADC to take a bad recall timing for no reason. This is why we always reiterate that you can't be results-oriented in your analysis. If you went by what happened, this Renata seems like a genius, but in reality, she just got absurdly lucky. She was barely in range for this random top lane fight. There's no world in which she predicted this would happen. Not only that, but the enemy Mordekaiser lost his mind. You're telling us she predicted that too? To wrap this part up, this is the kind of player that will have trouble climbing in the long term. Looking at how good players play is one of the fastest ways of improving, we know that, but copying things without actually trying to understand the reasoning behind the actions is a surefire way to get hard stuck in low elo. So you may have a bit of an idea of what we're looking for in these replays now. It's not about the result that occurs, but the mentality and the ideas behind the player's actions. Now let's test your decision making. Let's move on to our top example and see if you like the decisions this set is about to make. So far, he is destroying this lane phase. He's up a few kills over the Riven and has a massive item lead as a result. With how strong he is, he's just taking complete control over the lane and takes a pre-14-minute tower in front of Riven's face. After taking the tower, Sett pushes in yet another wave and then moves over to contest the enemy Gromp. Sadly, it's going to end up being taken from him. Again, it's a gold player. He doesn't know how to secure it, but the invade was definitely good. Now, Sett begins rotating towards the bot side of the map. This is pretty standard stuff. You got a lead, so you want to extend it to the rest of the map, right? Through no fault of his own though, Sett can't really get anything done in mid, so he wisely adapts and chooses to go bottom to pressure instead. Unfortunately, the Riven is back up here, and he can't pressure much more than this, so Sett collapses towards Dragon where there might be a fight brewing. In the river now, there's a long back and forth dance of everyone trying to get an engage off. Some ultimates are thrown here and there, but no one commits just yet. Eventually, a fight finally breaks out in mid. Sett, with his massive lead, completely zones off the enemy Tristana, and as a result, his team wins the fight. Now they secure the dragon, and Sett's lead was converted into a map-wide win. So, what do you guys think? Does this Sett have the potential to climb with map dominance like that, or is there something wrong with what he did? Okay, maybe you can't tell exactly what he should have done, but you definitely shouldn't have liked his decisions. Let's go over the first bad thing, which is a really easy mistake to fix. After fighting over the Gromp, Sett immediately rotated bottom to maybe fight or contest the dragon, right? So before an objective, if you're really far away or it hasn't spawned yet, why wouldn't you just base first? We showed you guys when he got a ton of gold from this tower, and it should have been immediately on your minds. Here's how much gold Sett had before rotating. It's almost just as fast to recall and then walk over to Dragon with some components rather than just directly walking there. This is along the lines of keeping things simple like we mentioned earlier. If you have gold, just spend it before you fight. It's really that easy. For the next big issue, let's jump to the moment when the fight was beginning to brew. We want to ask you a simple question. The red team has a 3k gold lead at the moment, but if we removed the scoreboard based on how both these teams are posturing, would you be able to tell which team is winning based on everyone's positioning? No, you couldn't. Want to know why? Because gold players fight in the most fair way possible, even when they're ahead. Our criticism of Sett is actually very simple. This player had a massive lead. He was a monster this game. Remember, he was taking Riven's tower in front of her, but everything he did was just going with the flow of the game. Oh, dragon is spawning. I shall rotate to group with my team. Oh, I'm at a numbers disadvantage. Let me fall back and rejoin my teammates. The issue is Sett is just reacting to what's happening on the map, going with the flow of things. Buddy, you are the flow. When you are fed as any player, everything that happens in the game should revolve around what you are doing. The enemy team never felt any pressure throughout that entire time, despite the fact that Sett was monstrously fed. Here's a couple examples of what he could have done. Why wasn't he top pressuring with a TP advantage so he could force a 5v4 at Dragon? Why isn't he baiting people to come to him and kiting away before they can reach him? Or even just 1v2ing them with his lead? Just anything that makes use of his advantage. When reviewing lower elos, we want to see players who make their presence felt on the map when they have a lead. If you're constantly just reacting to what's going on like this set did, you're going to have a very hard time climbing in the long term. Okay, let's move on to our fourth example. This time we'll be looking at this jungle replay and see whether you would play the same way this gold elo Sylas did. As he's preparing blue buff, we see Poppy getting ganked by Kayn. Like any other gold player, it does take Sylas a second to notice and respond. That's fine, we don't expect snap reactions in this elo. In the meantime, Poppy was holding her own and impressively just 1v2ing the Kayn and Maokai. These are the type of top laners we all dream about getting in our games. As the enemy duo falls back, we arrive at a critical moment for our Sylas. Put yourself in his shoes. Would you pressure through here or loop around to try and cut off Kayn and Maokai's escape? Well, let's see what actually happens first. Sylas chooses to loop around. As he does, Poppy keeps pushing and it turns out Maokai and Kayn stuck around to greed for the wave. Poppy is having none of that. She refuses to wait for Sylas and immediately flash stuns the Maokai, trading kills. This was super awkward for Sylas though, and he kind of fumbles to try and clean up Kayn, but just hands over a kill instead. From what was a great start with Poppy turning the gank around, complete disaster strikes and the blue team's lead is gone. So remember, the results of what happened don't matter. Was Sylas' decision to loop around correct, or do you think he made a mistake by not pathing this way immediately? Overcomplicating things is one of the biggest issues that lower elo players face. They see all the big brain decisions that higher elo players make at times and think that they need to do the same in order to climb. But this might be what's holding you back. In reality, most high elo situations are based on super simple concepts, but just applying it to a very specific situation. For example, killing yourself to crash a wave at the tower. If you've never seen this before, it can seem like a crazy 200 IQ play, but to a high elo player, they're just putting two simple concepts together. Crashing waves is good, and death timers are short at this point in the game. So why not? How does this tie back into Sylas' decision though? Well, let's break it down. Sylas' plan was something along the following lines. If he flanks, he can maybe catch Kayn or Maokai off guard who are trying to recall over here. It might be a bit awkward though, since he has to use his gap close to get over the Krug wall, but it might work if he gets lucky. Or if Kayn and Maokai stay under tower to greed over the wave, then he just needs Poppy to stall them from clearing the wave. Hopefully she can buy enough time for Sylas to loop back around to dive them before the wave is gone. It might be hard though, considering how fast Kayn can clear a wave. There's just a lot of ifs and buts here though. So many outcomes to consider, and we haven't even touched everything that could happen. For example, like this dive that Poppy botched. That's a possibility when Sylas loops around. So we're not taking away the fact that Poppy trolled here by going in too early. However, imagine if Sylas had just decided to keep things simple and was here right now. What can his opponents do, and how could anything possibly go wrong? If the enemy duo stays, they get dove and die instantly, and if they back off, Maokai is forced off a ton of farm, and Poppy gets a bunch of turret plates. It's a massive win. It's a guaranteed big lead with almost zero chance for it to go wrong. Not only that, but it's really simple to calculate. This is what we're looking for when reviewing lower elo games. The players like Renata or this Sylas who overcomplicate things with crazy moves are typically the ones who have a harder time climbing. There's so much value in simplicity, especially when you take away all of your opponent's actions. There's nothing Maokai and Kayn could do if Sylas was just there, as we talked about. These are the type of decisions we're most impressed by at skill cap from lower elo players. For our final replay, we'll talk about one of the final qualities that we look for that is a surefire sign that someone is likely to climb elo faster than everyone else. Here, we've got Aphelios and crew pushing down mid, while the enemy team cross maps and takes their bot inhibitor. Nothing else to mention here, just a bit of setup for our talking points. As a result, Aphelios later on makes his way towards bottom. It's only 20 minutes into the game, and Baron is unlikely a threat right now. Quick side note, this is why we don't recommend you take early side lane inhibitors. Look how much farm the enemy team is losing and how many minions are being funneled into Aphelios. He's living the good life right now. He's even in position to get the dragon by being down here, so he's farming while having map pressure at the same time. Things continue this way when we see his Kha'Zix get caught out in the enemy jungle. Not only that, but his Jax was overextending to push top and gets collapsed on as well. What Aphelios does next is based on a quality we highly recommend you develop if you haven't already. He just doesn't react to his teammates dying. In fact, he's so confident to keep pushing down here that we wonder if he even knows that his teammates died up there in the first place. Losing 2 players and Aphelios being bottom right now means that the enemy team has a 5v2 advantage at Baron right now. That's a big threat. But notice that throughout that entire game, you can't even see a single click or moment where Aphelios might have even considered rotating rotating to defend the Baron. He just keeps pushing. Look, we love split pushing at Skill Capped. We definitely think this is the right decision. But it's not about what's right or wrong here. It's the fact that in solo queue, you will never have any control over what happens. All you can do is choose how to react to it. And one of the best qualities that we notice from all the top players is this really simple mindset of, whatever, that happened, I'll just do this, I guess. It's the sheer confidence and lack of hesitation in this decision that we loved. He didn't second guess himself a single time in this critical moment where his team's lead could be thrown. He just kept pushing and trusted his own call to be the correct one. As a result, he manages to take 2 towers before Kindred comes to defend. And here we do see why he's still a gold player though. He could have easily taken the Krug camp on top of that, but this small mistake doesn't take away from the good mindset this player showed. You're not going to climb out of gold and platinum overnight. Even if you adopt all these mindsets and ways of looking at the game, you'll still be the same elo. But trust us when we say that following these guidelines will help you climb way faster than if you keep making the type of errors that keep players hard stuck for longer. Alright guys, remember to check out Skill Capped if you want to start climbing stupidly fast as ADC. We have the world's best courses waiting for you right now that teach you everything you need to know that will make your climb so much easier and more enjoyable. And if you don't climb at least 5 divisions when actively using Skill Capped, you can claim a refund, so there's literally no risk if you're serious about improving. Thanks for watching.